The Intergalactic Academy of Solara Prime was a marvel of diplomacy and technology, a beacon of unity where species from across the galaxy came to learn, collaborate, and sometimes clash. For Elliot Brandt, one of the Academy's rare human students, every day felt like an uphill battle. While other species flaunted their advanced biology, telepathic abilities, or evolutionary resilience, Elliot often felt like the odd one out, a fragile creature from a relatively young species trying to prove his worth. It was during one of his favorite classes, Xenobiology 101, that Elliot found himself at the center of an unexpected commotion. The room was a kaleidoscope of alien forms, towering Gorthants with shimmering scales, floating Naurians with jellyfish-like translucency, and the crystalline Zorvathians, whose refractive bodies glinted under the artificial sunlight. At the front of the room, Professor Xyrix, a luminescent Naurian, floated gracefully, its many tendrils swaying with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Today, Xyrix began in its harmonious voice, we will explore apex predators, the creatures that once dominated our homeworlds and shaped our civilizations. Elliot leaned back in his seat. This would be interesting. Apex predators always fascinated him, especially since humans, technically, weren't the strongest or most dangerous species on Earth. But they were survivors, and that mattered. As part of this exercise, Xyrix continued, each of you will share the most fearsome predator from your planet. Let us begin with the human. All heads, or their equivalent, turned toward Elliot. He straightened, suddenly aware of the weight of 100 alien gazes. Well, he started, scratching the back of his neck, Earth has a few dangerous predators. Sharks, lions, crocodiles. Do not stall, human, interrupted a booming voice. It belonged to a hulking Gorthan named Threx, whose glinting scales and massive frame exuded dominance. Speak of the deadliest. Elliot grinned, deciding to have a little fun. The deadliest? That's easy. The hippopotamus. The room fell silent. Utterly silent. A surprising reaction. Elliot expected confusion. Maybe some dismissive chuckles or a few raised appendages. What he did not expect was outright panic. The Naurian sitting next to him flickered like a glitching hologram. A crystalline Zorvathian turned an alarming shade of dull gray, a sign of extreme distress. One of the Gorthants at the back let out a low growl, its claws digging into the desk. The Trixani, a bird-like species, let out a sharp squawk and flapped their wings wildly. Hippopotamus, stammered Xyrix, its voice uncharacteristically shaky. What is this creature? Elliot blinked, unsure how to respond to the sudden shift in atmosphere. It's a big, semi-aquatic mammal, he explained slowly. It lives in rivers, eats grass. Oh, and it's incredibly territorial. It can bite a crocodile in half. This time, the reactions were even more dramatic. A Naurian student slid off their chair, their jelly-like form collapsing into a puddle on the floor. A Trixani fainted, its feathers scattering like confetti. Even Threx, the imposing Gorthan, seemed to shrink back, his claws retracting. Wait, Elliot said, holding up his hands. Why are you all freaking out? It's just a hippo. Just a hippo, repeated Xyrix, horrified. The professor activated the holoprojector, which hummed to life and displayed a three-dimensional image of a yawning hippopotamus. The aliens gasped. The hologram zoomed in on the creature's massive jaws, revealing its cavernous maw and enormous teeth. Gasps filled the room. To Elliot, it was just a familiar image from Earth. To the aliens, it was the face of death itself. A class in chaos. Does it eat everything it sees? Asked a trembling Zorvathian, whose crystalline body was now flickering faintly. No, Elliot assured them, struggling to keep a straight face. It mostly eats grass. It's just aggressive. A predator that doesn't hunt but still kills, muttered an Naurian, their form pulsating with anxiety. That's unthinkable. It's not a predator, really, Elliot clarified. It's just territorial. And fast. You wouldn't think it, but they can outrun humans. This revelation sent another ripple of panic through the room. Outrun humans, screeched a Trixani, their feathers puffing up. You're telling me this monstrosity is both armored and swift? Well, yeah, Elliot admitted. Oh, and they can swim really well too. The Naurian professor seemed to shimmer even more nervously. Human, Xyrix said, its voice trembling. Do these creatures have natural predators on your world? Not really, Elliot said, shrugging. I mean, sometimes a lion or a crocodile might try, but usually they regret it. At that moment, A Gorthan in the back stood up abruptly, their towering form shaking. "Your world is insane," they declared. "To coexist with such a beast without being destroyed is nothing short of madness." The beginning of a legend. By the end of the lesson, the classroom was in chaos. Aliens whispered in hushed tones about Earth's apex terror, some already debating how humans could have possibly survived on such a hostile world. Elliot, meanwhile, sat back and smirked, realizing he'd just stumbled onto something significant. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he wasn't seen as a fragile outlier. Instead, he was now the human who came from a planet of unstoppable monsters. And while Elliot knew the hippo wasn't the deadliest creature Earth had to offer, he decided to let the legend grow. After all, a little fear never hurt anyone. The hysteria over the hippopotamus didn't end with the lesson. As the class filed out, the usual chatter and banter were replaced with hushed whispers and worried glances. Elliot trailed behind, trying to make sense of the aliens' extreme reactions. He couldn't shake the image of the Trixani fainting or the Naurian dissolving into a puddle. Walking through the academy's grand corridors, a towering Gorthan student named Threx caught up with him, his scaled frame looming over Elliot. "Human," Threx began, his deep voice laced with unease. "This hippopotamus. It is a natural creature of your world." "Yeah," Elliot said, trying to downplay it. "They're just animals. Dangerous, sure, but they're not hunting people or anything." Threx frowned, his scaled brow furrowing. "On Gortha, such a creature would be eradicated within a cycle. Your species tolerates its existence." Elliot stopped walking, turning to face the massive alien. "It's not about tolerating them. They're part of the ecosystem. As long as you don't get in their way, they don't bother you." Threx's claws twitched nervously. A predator that does not hunt but still kills, it defies logic. Even the Hrethik, the apex predator of my world, hunts only for survival. This hippopotamus is chaos incarnate. Elliot chuckled nervously. "It's just an animal, Threx. No need to overthink it." Threx didn't look convinced. "Perhaps. Or perhaps your world breeds chaos in its creatures and strength in its people." The spread of fear. By the time Elliot reached the cafeteria, the legend of the hippopotamus had already spread. The normally loud and lively dining hall was subdued, with clusters of alien students huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. As he grabbed his tray of food and sat down, he noticed an entire table of Naurians eyeing him nervously. A crystalline Zorvathian, their body glowing faintly, approached him cautiously. "Human Elliot," the Zorvathian began, their voice melodic but trembling. "Is it true that your planet's hippopotamus is impervious to most weapons?" Elliot raised an eyebrow. "What? No, not really. I mean, they're tough, but..." The professor mentioned that their hide is nearly impenetrable and that they crush their enemies with jaws strong enough to break bones. Interrupted a Trixani from across the room, their feathers ruffling in alarm. Elliot sighed, realizing the rumors were getting out of hand. "Okay, yes, they're strong. But they're not invincible. They're just animals. Humans don't even think about them unless we're near rivers." This only seemed to make things worse. A nearby Naurian let out a distressed squeak. "They're common," it whispered, its gelatinous form trembling. "Your kind coexists with these horrors?" "Of course we do," Elliot said, trying to sound casual. "They're just part of life on Earth." The room fell into a stunned silence. To the aliens, the idea of living alongside such a creature was unfathomable. On their worlds, apex predators had been eradicated or tamed long before their civilizations reached space. The thought of a species thriving on a planet where such monsters still roamed freely was terrifying. A galactic comparison. Later that day, Elliot found himself summoned to Professor Xyrix's office. The Naurian floated behind a shimmering desk, their tendrils fidgeting as they examined a holographic rendering of a hippopotamus. "Elliot," the professor began, "I must admit, I have never encountered a creature so perplexing. On most civilized worlds, apex predators were either domesticated or eliminated entirely. Yet your kind allows this thing to exist unchecked. It's not like we have a choice," Elliot said. "Earth isn't some perfectly balanced utopia. It's chaotic. There are volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, and yes, hippos. We survive by adapting." Xyrix tilted their glowing head, intrigued. "Adaptation is a commendable trait, but I wonder, how has your species avoided extinction in the face of such adversity?" Elliot smirked. Because humans don't just adapt, we learn. We figured out how to live with creatures like the hippopotamus by respecting their boundaries. We don't try to control everything, we work around it. The professor hummed thoughtfully. Fascinating. On Nauria, the apex predator known as the Threxelon was eradicated within a century of our species developing energy weapons. We believed eliminating threats was the key to progress. Elliot shrugged. That works for some, I guess. But humans are different. We face danger head-on and figure out how to thrive despite it. The hippopotamus in galactic context. The conversation with Xyrix solidified what Elliot had already started to suspect. The hippopotamus wasn't just a frightening animal to these aliens. It represented something far deeper. To them, it was a symbol of chaos and unpredictability, forces that their civilizations had spent millennia trying to eliminate. By the end of the day, the legend of the hippopotamus had transformed into a full-blown myth. Aliens whispered about its indestructible hide, its unmatched strength, and its relentless aggression. Elliot, meanwhile, couldn't decide whether to laugh or be concerned. As he walked back to his dorm, his roommate, a sarcastic Zorvathian named Clyrin, leaned against the doorway, their crystalline form shimmering with amusement. "You've done it now, human," Clyrin said, smirking. "Half the Academy thinks Earth is a death world because of your hippo." Elliot chuckled, shaking his head. "It's not a death world. We just have some colorful wildlife." Clyrin raised a crystalline eyebrow. "Colorful? You mean terrifying? If your rivers are home to monsters like this, what else are you hiding?" Elliot grinned. "Wouldn't you like to know?" The Intergalactic Academy of Solara Prime buzzed with whispers about Earth's unstoppable monster. The legend of the hippopotamus had spread across the student body, growing more dramatic with each retelling. By now, the hippo was no longer just a dangerous animal. It was a symbol of chaos, a living weapon that defied galactic norms of order and control. As Elliot strolled through the campus, students from various species shot him curious or fearful glances. A group of Naurians huddled near a holoscreen, which displayed a video of a hippo chasing a boat. Their gelatinous forms shivered with every thundering charge. Nearby, a Trixani flapped its wings nervously as it watched a holographic hippo yawn, its massive jaws on full display. "Elliot," called a booming voice. He turned to see Threx, the Gorthan, striding toward him with his usual imposing presence. "A word." Elliot sighed. "What now, Threx? Don't tell me you're scared of hippos too." Threx crossed his massive arms, his scales glinting in the sunlight. "Scared? No. Concerned? Absolutely. Your species coexists with these creatures. That implies a resilience we underestimated." "Or," Elliot countered, "it just means we're good at avoiding things that want to kill us." Threx snorted. "It's not just the hippopotamus, human. It's the principle. You thrive in chaos. While other species eliminated such threats, you adapted to live among them. It's unsettling." Elliot smirked. "So you're telling me humans are unsettling because we're not extinct yet?" Threx frowned, but said nothing more. The Gorthan turned and left, leaving Elliot to wonder if the conversation was a compliment or an insult. A growing concern. Elliot's reputation as the ambassador of chaos wasn't limited to the student body. Word of the hippopotamus reached the Academy's faculty and administration. One evening, he received a formal summons to appear before the High Council of Solara Prime, a governing body of the Academy's most distinguished professors. The council chamber was an impressive room filled with towering holographic displays and representatives from dozens of species. Elliot stood at the center, facing the stern gazes of beings who had seen centuries, if not millennia, of galactic history. "Human Elliot," began Chancellor Viras, a crystalline Altherian whose shimmering form exuded authority. "We have reviewed the data on this hippopotamus. It has caused considerable unrest among the student body." Elliot scratched the back of his neck, unsure whether to laugh or apologize. Sorry? I didn't mean to freak anyone out. It's just an animal." "That," Viras said sharply, "is precisely the issue. This animal, as you call it, possesses strength, aggression, and resilience unmatched by any apex predator currently existing on our worlds. And yet, your species not only survives alongside it, you thrive." Elliot raised his hands defensively. "It's not like we train them to be killing machines or anything. They're just part of the ecosystem. We respect them, and they mostly leave us alone." Another council member, a glowing Naurian named Zyther, floated forward. "Respect? You sing songs about them, do you not? Hungry Hungry Hippos, I believe it is called. Elliot chuckled. That's a game. For kids. It's not serious. The council exchanged uneasy glances. To them, the casual way humans treated such a dangerous creature only deepened the mystery and fear of Earth. The turning point. As the meeting progressed, Elliot began to realize that the council's interest wasn't just academic. The way they spoke about the hippopotamus, and humanity by extension, hinted at something deeper. They saw Earth's survival as proof of humanity's unique resilience, but also as a potential threat. Let me get this straight, Elliot said finally. You're worried about humans because we live on a planet with big, angry river animals? Chancellor Virus's crystalline form flickered faintly. It is not just the hippopotamus, Elliot. It is the pattern. Your species has evolved on a world filled with hazards, geological, meteorological, and biological. Where others would have perished, you adapted. That adaptability makes you unpredictable. Elliot took a moment to absorb the weight of the statement. So you think humans are dangerous because we're good at surviving? Zyther interjected. It is not just survival. It is your ability to thrive in chaos, to treat danger as normal. If your species coexists with creatures like the hippopotamus, what other horrors might your world conceal? Elliot's smirk returned. Wouldn't you like to know? Building a legend. As Elliot left the council chamber, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. For once, humanity wasn't being dismissed as fragile or primitive. The legend of the hippopotamus had transformed into something larger, a symbol of Earth's unyielding nature and humanity's ability to endure. Back at his dorm, his roommate Clyrin, a sarcastic Zorvathian, lounged on their bunk, their crystalline form shimmering with amusement. Well, Clyrin asked, how did the council meeting go? Did you terrify them more? Elliot shrugged. Apparently, the hippo is now a galactic legend. They think we're all chaos-loving lunatics because we haven't been wiped out yet. Clyrin laughed, the sound like tinkling glass. To be fair, they're not wrong. Your planet does sound like a death trap. Maybe, Elliot said, leaning back against the wall. But it's our death trap. And it's made us stronger. Clyrin tilted their head thoughtfully. Perhaps. Or perhaps you're just good at faking it. Elliot grinned. Either way, it works. The legend of the hippopotamus had spiraled far beyond anything Elliot could have anticipated. What began as an offhand remark in a xenobiology lecture had morphed into a symbol of Earth's resilience and its supposed danger. Across the intergalactic academy of Solara Prime, whispers of Earth's terrifying beasts continued to spread. For Elliot, the attention was equal parts amusing and exhausting. But the legend took a serious turn when Chancellor Virus summoned Elliot once again, this time to a high-level meeting with representatives of the Galactic Security Council. Human Elliot, Virus began, their crystalline form refracting the light ominously. The galactic community has concerns. Your planet's capacity to coexist with such chaotic creatures raises questions about your species' stability. Elliot frowned, crossing his arms. So let me get this straight. You're worried about humanity because we didn't kill off every dangerous animal on our planet? A towering, insectoid Krellian delegate clicked their mandibles. It is not merely the creatures, human. It is the implications of a species thriving in such an unpredictable environment. Your survival suggests either reckless adaptability or a capacity for concealed power. Elliot raised an eyebrow. You think humans are hiding something? The Krellian tilted its head. It is plausible. The conversation shifted from curiosity to thinly veiled accusations. Elliot realized this wasn't just about the hippopotamus anymore, it was about humanity as a whole. To these aliens, Earth was a planet of chaos, and humans were its unpredictable offspring. The test of resilience. Frustrated but unwilling to back down, Elliot proposed an idea. If you're so scared of a hippo, why not simulate one? Test your theories about how dangerous it is. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Virus spoke. A controlled simulation could provide clarity. Within hours, the Academy's advanced simulation chamber was configured. The environment was crafted to mimic an Earth-like riverbank, complete with a holographic hippopotamus. To Elliot, the digital recreation seemed almost comical, but to the gathered aliens, it was a fearsome spectacle. The first volunteers were a team of Gorthan warriors, renowned across the galaxy for their strength and combat prowess. Clad in armor and armed with plasma weapons, they entered the simulation with confidence. Moments later, they were running for their lives. The simulated hippo, programmed with Earth's apex predator behavior, charged with terrifying speed. Plasma shots ricocheted harmlessly off its thick hide. One Gorthan tried to leap to safety, only to be swept aside by the beast's massive jaws. Outside the simulation, the audience watched in stunned silence. A Naurian whispered, "It's unstoppable." Humanity reframed. After the simulation ended, Elliot stood before the crowd of alien students and faculty. The fear in their eyes was palpable, but Elliot saw an opportunity to change the narrative. "Look, I get it," he began. "The hippopotamus seems terrifying. But you're missing the point. Humanity isn't dangerous because of the animals we live with, it's because of how we live with them." He paused, letting his words sink in. Humans don't control the chaos. We adapt to it. We learn from it. The reason we survived hippos and hurricanes and everything else Earth threw at us isn't because we're the strongest, it's because we're the most determined. The room was silent as his words echoed. Even Chancellor Viras seemed contemplative, their crystalline form dimming slightly in thought. "Maybe," Elliot continued, "that's something you can learn from us. It's not about eliminating every threat, it's about finding a way to thrive despite them." A new perspective. In the days following the simulation, the Academy's attitude toward Elliot, and humanity, began to shift. The myth of the hippopotamus didn't disappear, but it evolved. It became a symbol of resilience, a testament to Earth's chaotic beauty and humanity's ability to endure. Elliot found himself at the center of this newfound respect. Students who once dismissed him as a fragile curiosity now sought him out for advice, asking about Earth's other chaotic creatures and the strategies humans use to coexist with them. Even Threx, the imposing Gorthan, approached him one evening. "Human," he rumbled, his tone less confrontational than usual. "I have been thinking about your words. Perhaps there is strength in chaos." Elliot smirked. "Told you. Chaos isn't so bad once you get used to it." The legend lives on. Back in his dorm, Elliot recounted the day's events to his roommate, Clyrin. The Zorvathian, always the skeptic, shook their crystalline head with amusement. "You've done it, human. You've turned a river beast into a galactic legend." Elliot leaned back in his chair, grinning. "Hey, if they want to think Earth is a planet of unstoppable monsters, who am I to correct them?" Clyrin's shimmer brightened with laughter. "You know, they're probably wondering what else you're hiding." "Good," Elliot replied, his grin widening. "Let them wonder." As the Academy lights dimmed for the night, Elliot stared out at the stars. He had come to Solara Prime feeling small and insignificant, but now he realized that humanity's strength wasn't in its size or technology, it was in its grit. And if the galaxy wanted to believe that humanity could thrive in chaos, well, they weren't wrong.